Unit 4, Formative 1, Day 5, Dividing Exponents. Okay, so x to the m over x to the n equals x to the m minus n. Okay, so we had to add the exponents when we were multiplying. So when you're dividing, it's actually subtracting the exponents. Okay, we're saying maybe m is greater than n. Well, let's say m's on the bottom. In other words, the bigger number's on the bottom. You can keep the x on the bottom and subtract that way. So really you just got to figure out where is it bigger and then subtract the smaller one. Okay? Another way to look at this, like number 1, x to the 4th over x to the 2nd. Well, it's bigger on top, so we're going to subtract that 2 from the 4, so it becomes x to the 4 minus 2 over 1, which is x to the 2nd. Okay, or you could look at this and say x to the 4th is x times x times x times x over x squared, which is x times x. Cancel out those x's and all you're left with is x times x, which is x to the 2nd. Okay, so that's what it means. On number 2, you have 4m to the 3rd over 5m to the 9th. First thing you want to look at is your numbers, 4 and 5. Can you simplify 4 and 5? No, so they're going to stay as 4 on top, 5 on the bottom. M to the 3rd over m to the 9th, well, they're bigger on the bottom, so m stays on the bottom, and 9 minus 3 is 6. So you get 4 over 5m to the 6th. 6x to the 2nd over 2x to the negative 3. You notice we have a negative exponent. We need to move that first before we can do anything else. So we have 6x to the 2nd. Well, that x to the negative 3 also needs to be on top as x to the 3rd over 2. Okay, now look at your numbers, 6 and 2. They simplify to 3 over 1. Okay, x to the 2nd times x to the 3rd is x to the 5th. Alright, so make sure you move your negative exponents before you do anything else. Number 4, negative 3x to the 4th, y to the 6th, over 9x to the negative 2, y to the 3rd. Move your negative exponents, so you have negative 3x to the 4th. We also need to move the x from down here up to the top, so x to the 2nd. Keep the y to the 6th on the top. On the bottom you have 9y to the 3rd. Look at your numbers first. Can you simplify negative 3 over 9? Yes, that simplifies to negative 1 over 3. X to the 4th times x to the 2nd is x to the 6th. And y to the 6th, y to the 3rd, y to the 6th is bigger. Subtract 6 minus 3 and you get y to the 3rd. So that's your answer. Okay, so move your negative exponents. If they're right next to each other, you can add them. If one's on top, one's on the bottom, you subtract them. Find where they're bigger. So it might end up on the top, it might end up on the bottom. Number 5, 7m to the negative 2, n to the 6th, p to the negative 3 over negative 21, n m to the 6th, n to the negative 4, p to the negative 7. Like I said, it's going to be a lot easier if you just start by moving your negative exponents. So on top you have 7, you have n to the 6th, you have, that needs to move to the top, so n to the 4th, that needs to move to the top, so p to the 7th. Over negative 21, let's see, on the bottom you still have m to the 6th, you now have this m to the 2nd, you have this p to the 3rd. Okay, so we got the 7 in there, we got that moved to the bottom, we have n to the 6th in there, we have p moved to the bottom, negative 21's in there, m to the 6th is in there, n to the 4th moved to the top, p to the 7th moved to the top. Now just start simplifying. 7 over negative 21 becomes 1 over negative 3. N to the 6th, n to the 4th on top becomes n to the 10th. M to the 6th, m to the 2nd on the bottom becomes m to the 8th on the bottom. P's are bigger on top, so you subtract those 3, and it becomes p to the 4th. Okay, so you want to make sure at the end, number 1, you don't have any negative exponents. Number 2, you don't have any zeros. Number 3, you don't have multiple letters. In other words, you don't have 2 different m's in separate places. You need to make sure you put every letter together. And that's your answer. Okay, number 6, 20x to the negative 3, y to the 2nd, w to the negative 4th, over 5x to the 5th, y to the 2nd, w to the negative 8. Let's move everything that's negative. So on top, we need to keep our 20. We need y to the 2nd on top. Okay, on the bottom, you need 5. You need to keep your x to the 5th, keep your y to the 2nd. Okay, this x to the negative 3 needs to go to the bottom as x to the 3rd. This w to the negative 4 needs to go to the bottom as w to the 4th. And this w to the negative 8 needs to go to the top. Okay, now you just start simplifying. So your numbers, start with your numbers always. 20 over 5 becomes 4 over 1. Alright, so those are done. And then you can go to your x's. We have x to the 5th and x to the 3rd on the bottom, which becomes x to the 8th. Okay, so those are done. Look at your y's. You have y to the 2nd on top and y to the 2nd on bottom. Those just cancel out, because if you take 2 minus 2, it'd be 0. So those are gone. And then w's are bigger on top, so keep your w on top, and 8 minus 4 is 4. Okay, these can be very complicated problems if you don't take it one step at a time. So just remember everything you've learned, move your negative exponents, subtract or add depending on if it's next to each other or up and down. Okay. Number 7, scientific notation. 8.5 times 10 to the negative 3 over 4 times 10 to the 2nd. Okay, so you actually just divide. So you take 8.5 divided by 4 and you get 2.125 times 10 to the now negative 3 minus 2 becomes negative 5. And it's okay for scientific notation to have negative exponents, so we are done. Number 8, 3.27 divided by 6.8 is 0.48 times 10 to the 5 minus 2 is 3. Now look at this one over here real quick. 2.125, that's still scientific notation, so that one's still good. But this one, however, is no longer scientific notation, because 0.48 needs to become 4.8 times 10 to the, now it was to the 3rd, so we'd move it 1, 2, 3 spots, but now we only need to move it 2 spots, so now is times 10 to the 2nd. Alright, make sure you have all 8 problems written down in your notes, and we'll see you tomorrow.